Amazon famously uses single-threaded leaders, STLs, one outcome to one leader.
If you can't describe what you're doing in a process, the chances are you don't know what you're doing.
Alan Mulally, he actually turned Ford around using a weekly business plan review. And he had this red, yellow, green. On a weekly basis, he had this dashboard.
Heartbeat of execution is momentum, and ultra leaders are great momentum builders.
Two founders walk into
With Satish, Manchikanti and Ajit, Sivaram.
execution is not a hustle. When you grow people, you grow everything. Two founders walk into.
Here's the truth very few leaders want to hear. Your strategy doesn't matter if you can't ship. You can't have the clearest vision, the smartest plan, the most aligned leadership team. But if you can't turn that into something real, something that a customer can touch, something that a team can celebrate, something that actually moves the numbers, you're just well-intentioned. And well-intentioned doesn't pay salaries. It doesn't win markets. It doesn't build companies that last. Execution is where leadership gets real. Because anyone can talk about where we're going. The hard part is actually getting there. Making sure that Monday's work connects with Friday's outcome. Making sure people know what done looks like. Making sure when something breaks, it actually gets fixed, not just discussed for the millionth time. This is where most organizations leak value, not in bad ideas, but in the gap between decision and delivery, between we agreed to do this and we actually did it. That gap is very expensive. It's demoralizing. It's almost a leadership problem, not a people problem. Because when execution is weak, everything suffers. Trust erodes, momentum dies. Your best people start wondering if anything they do actually matters. And competitors who execute just a little bit better, they don't need to be smarter than you. They just need to ship faster. That's what we're unpacking today. Execution. When you think of leaders executing projects at scale, the real question to ask is, have they built systems that actually deliver outcomes, or is there just a culture of motion? A culture of motion is one of busyness, but they're not getting outcomes. And it's so easy to fall track to that as leaders. And I think ultra leaders need to wrestle with that. How do I build a system that actually delivers outcome? Doesn't just have busyness.
Yeah, very true. That's definitely a wrestle, because the idea that's been put out is the execution is all about a hustle. It's a hustle, it's packed calendars, late nights and constant motion, and people get kick out of it. It's impressive. You feel like you're a real leader if you're busy all the time and there is no space on your calendar. Yeah, but it's not sustainable, and it burns people out. And I've seen one trap the busy leaders fall into a number of times is micromanagement. Because when they're not so close to the action, they feel like they become redundant. And it creates an illusion of control. But unfortunately, that kills speed and initiative in the team. And the more you micromanage, the more you have to micromanage, and the busier you get and the less effective you are as a leader. But if you strip away all these buzzwords away from what is execution, execution simply is to make the path visible. Number one, to make ownership clear, who is responsible for what, and most importantly, if you ask me, is remove friction fast. Clear the path so that people can run. And that turns the effort into outcome. And that is what ultra leaders are good at. And do that without burning people out.
Nice. I love those three. That's such a powerful frame. When you're driving outcomes, something we've talked a lot about is what Frankie and Covey built out. And it's just 4 blocks of saying, hey, what really is execution? It's like you said, is clarity. Who's doing what? Where are we going? Is what are our key inputs? And then do we have a scorecard where we're tracking this? Where can everybody see where we're at in this project? And finally, what's the cadence? How fast do we keep things moving? Those 4 things. I love what he says. He talks about when you're thinking of clarity, you want to focus on either, like you said earlier, BHAGs, or you want to focus on, he calls it wildly important goals, WIGs. What are your wigs that you have? Amazon famously has this where they look at single-threaded leaders. Every outcome has one leader. It's either them or not. It's never shared outcomes. And that is powerful because then you know who's responsible for what. There's so much clarity there. When you think of inputs, you want people to act on your lead measures. That's what you want people doing. When you think of scorecards, Ford, he did this. It was Alan Mulally. He famously turned Ford around with weekly business plan reviews. We're used to monthly, quarterly, but he said, hey, the faster we do this, the faster we review, the faster we move forward. And then eventually you build these cadences. We've walked into the Toyota office. You remember these Obeya rooms where they have all across on the walls the game plan, the project plan, and every morning they start there. A stand-up meeting with that visual in front of you. That cadence is what keeps action going. So when you have these four things, clarity, inputs, scorecards, and cadence, we see projects really developing well.
Yeah. I think the ultra leaders who are able to do what you're saying, one of the key abilities they have is process thinking. They really bring process into how they think about everything you talked about. They have this ability to turn vision into systems, because end of the day, it's not about endless meetings and checklists. John Dewar, very true to his name, the guy who came up with OKRs. He says the recipe is three things. Have very clear OKRs, which you already talked about. Accountability, like OKRs, and who's going to be accountable for what. And the third piece is solid project management. So when you have those three working together, there are clear dashboards, clear OKRs, clear accountability, and then there is a solid project management to back that up. Everybody works in synergy.
Yeah.
Someone said this again, if you cannot describe what you do in a process, you probably don't know what you do.
Yeah.
Build straightforward workflows, clear roles, and feedback loops. That can turn complex projects into routines.
Nice.
Peaceful routines.
We've seen teams do this so often, come together for 2 days, build this OKR, and then you see the OKR again next quarter or next half year or next year. And I think the project management is what keeps the lights on, keeping that function, keeping that going. It also keeps work streamlined. Like you said, people aren't just busy, they're actually productive. That's critical. For what we've seen is one of the big challenges leaders have is then, hey, I've got all of these resources around me. Who's doing what? Who's involved in the project? Who's a mentor for the project? Figuring out all those roles. When it comes to strategically thinking of your stakeholders, you're thinking of three things. You're thinking of, hey, can I define the terrain? Who matters to what, when, all of that. And then quickly prioritize what attention level do I give to each person? How do I engage different stakeholders differently? And finally, you've got to make some trade-offs. You're not going to please everyone in your project. So figuring out who do I keep in the loop, who needs to be at my daily stand-up, not calling 20 people for it, and not using people's times. So define your terrain, prioritize that attention, and finally make smart trade-offs. Because you want win-wins for the right people, and that will give good outcomes.
Yeah. Heartbeat for execution. My most favorite word when we talk about execution is momentum. And ultra leaders are true momentum builders. And I think just to sum up what we've talked about, you want to build momentum, there are three things. Number one is priorities, as you talked about already. Knowing truly what matters and what to focus on. Famously, Steve Jobs cut their product line from 350 to 10.
Yeah.
And that's just outrageous. Then having a clear process, structure, project management, OKRs, making the path clear and repeatable for everybody to be able to do that. And then the proof, which is the dashboards, short cycles for feedback loops. When you are able to do that, and all the companies we admire, they just didn't have bold ideas. They had the muscle to be able to act, learn, and repeat and scale. And that is what makes them great leaders. Momentum builders.
Execution isn't micromanagement or heroic busyness. It's making outcomes actually inevitable. We trade motion for meaning when everyone can name the few results that matter. The one owner per result. The finish line that actually defines done. We move the needle by acting on lead measures, not lagging dashboards. We keep a simple public scoreboard so truth is visible. And we run a steady cadence where commitments are made and actually kept. Process isn't red tape. It's how we make handoffs clean and decisions fast. Clear roles, clear workflows, and clear who decides when the stakes rise. Priorities get ruthless. Improvements get relentless. Because we align who matters, what we're trading off. Do this well, and ideas become motion. Motion becomes momentum, and momentum actually compounds.